My name is Maya, and when I got married, my mother-in-law told all her friends I was just like a daughter to her. I didn't realize daughter, in her vocabulary, meant live-in maid with no paycheck. She said it with a smile, one arm wrapped around my shoulders at our wedding reception. We're so lucky, she gushed. She's going to be part of our home. We'll all live together, like a real family. At the time it sounded sweet. My husband, Arjun, and I had done the math. We both had entry-level jobs, student loans, and not much in savings. His parents had a paid-off 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. They proposed what sounded like a reasonable deal. Move in with them for 1 year. Pay a small amount toward utilities. Save aggressively for a down payment on our own place. You'll be out before you know it, my father-in-law said. By the time your first anniversary rolls around, you'll be ready to buy. I'd grown up in an apartment with paper-thin walls and a bathroom that never quite stopped leaking. The idea of a real house, with a yard and a driveway, even temporarily, sounded nice. Besides, my own parents lived 3 states away. Arjun was close to his family. I wanted to be supportive. 1 year, I told myself. I can handle 1 year. I was wrong. From day one, the expectations were obvious. Not stated as rules exactly. More as assumptions. On our first morning as a married couple, I woke up early, excited to make coffee for everyone, maybe cook breakfast, start on the right foot. When I got to the kitchen, my mother-in-law was already there. She handed me an apron. Good, she said. You're up. We need to make parathas for everyone. Your father-in-law likes his tea strong. Arjun likes extra pickles. And don't forget to pack lunch for him and Rohan. I asked, blinking. Your brother-in-law, she said. He has work. You are the daughter-in-law now. You take care of these things. It wasn't a question. I'd been raised to be helpful. To cook, to clean, to pitch in. I didn't mind making breakfast. What I minded was realizing, very quickly, that this wasn't a first morning-only gesture. It was the job description. Any time there were dirty dishes, she'd call my name. Maya, can you wash these? If laundry piled up, it was assumed I'd sort, wash, dry, fold for everyone. If guests came over, I was the one in the kitchen, refilling plates, making chai, clearing cups, while the men and my mother-in-law sat in the living room smiling and talking. When her friends praised her for raising such a helpful daughter-in-law, she just nodded proudly, as if she'd personally trained me like a show dog. The first time I didn't jump up fast enough, she pulled me aside. In this house, I expect respect, she said. If you sit while your elders work, people will think I raised you badly. Do you want that? It wasn't about chores anymore. It was about control. At first, Arjun thought I was exaggerating. When I complained at night quietly, in our small bedroom, he'd sigh. Babe, that's just how my mom is, he'd say. She wants the house a certain way. It's cultural. You know that. My culture also involves rest, I'd reply. And not working an 8-hour shift at my job and then another 6 at home for free. You're not working for free, he'd protest. We're saving on rent. They're helping us. Who's we? I'd ask. Because you sit and watch cricket with them while I'm bleaching the sink. He'd bristle. Don't make it a competition, he'd say. I help when they ask. They rarely asked him. When I pointed that out, he'd shrug. They know you're better at it, he'd say, as if that were a compliment. Better at it. Like I'd been born knowing his father's exact tea preferences and his brother's sock habits. The truth was simpler. I was easier to assign things to. I was the newcomer. The one trying to earn my place. They took full advantage. I worked full-time in an office. Nothing fancy. Receptionist and general admin for a small insurance agency. It meant I was gone from 8 to 5, sometimes later. My mother-in-law didn't seem to grasp that. If she wanted something, she wanted it now. Can you stop at the Indian store on your way home and get ginger, cilantro, and yogurt? She'd text at 4:30 a.m. Can you pick up dry cleaning? Can you go to Costco? It's only half an hour out of your way. It was never, can Arjun go? Arjun is so tired, she'd say if I suggested sending him. He works all day. So do I'd say. You sit at a desk, she'd reply. He does real work. Apparently real work meant software engineering. Me, coordinating office chaos, answering phones, filing claims, and getting yelled at by clients, was sitting. When I got home, I barely had time to change before she'd start in. Maya, the floor needs mopping. Maya, the bathroom needs scrubbing. Maya, don't forget to iron Rohan's shirts. He has an interview tomorrow. Rohan, my brother-in-law, was 26. He lived in the basement, played video games until 2 a.m., and had never cleaned a toilet in his life. If I so much as hinted that he could do his own ironing, my mother-in-law would snap. He's a man. He has important things to focus on. You're the woman of the house. I'd look at Arjun. He'd avoid my eyes. Later, when I brought it up, he'd say, "You know how they are. It's easier not to argue." Easy for him. He wasn't the one kneeling on the bathroom floor with a scrub brush. We paid rent too. That was the part that really twisted the knife. The original deal had been just pay some utilities. In practice, it turned into a contribution that looked an awful lot like a below-market rent payment. Every month my mother-in-law would sit me down. Not Arjun. "Show me your paycheck," she'd say, as if I were 12. She'd go through my bank app, tisking at every line item. "You spent $10 on lunch?" she'd scold. "Why? We have food here. You don't need to impress coworkers." Then she'd tell me how much of my income I was allowed to keep for small things like feminine products and bus fare. Everything else went into their account. "For savings," she said. "For your future house." I was too exhausted and too unsure of myself to challenge it properly. When I brought it up to Arjun, he'd say, "It's temporary. Think of it as forced saving. My dad managed money this way all his life. We'll see the benefit later." Later never seemed to come. The 1-year deadline passed quietly. No announcement. No plan. On our first anniversary, my parents flew in and took us out to dinner. My mother-in-law came too. In the restaurant, she told the waiter, loudly, that we lived with them because it's better for young couples to be under elders' guidance. After she went to the bathroom, my mom leaned across the table and squeezed my hand. "You look tired," she said softly. "Are you okay?" I wanted to say no. To spill everything. The chores. The money. The constant criticism. Instead, I smiled weakly and said, "It's just work. I'll be fine." I felt like a coward. Back at the house that night, I tried again with Arjun. "It's been a year," I said. "We said we'd move out. What's the plan?" He sighed. "Have you seen our bank balance?" he asked. "We're nowhere near a down payment. The market is crazy. It doesn't make sense to rent when we can stay here and keep saving. My parents are getting older. They like having us around." "They like having me around," I said. "To do everything." "You're exaggerating," he said. "Besides, if we moved out now, they'd be heartbroken. Just a little longer. Maybe 2 more years. Then we'll really be set." 2 more years. On top of the one we'd already done. I felt something in my chest crack. The breaking point came on a Sunday. My only day off. My only chance to sleep in, see friends, maybe breathe. Arjun had gone to play cricket with old college friends. He'd invited me. I'd been tempted. Then my mother-in-law said, "You can go next time. Today we are hosting Auntie Neha and her family. There is so much to do." Hosting meant cooking enough food for 10. Deep cleaning the house. Setting the table. Serving. Cleaning up. She did some of it. She chopped vegetables. Supervised. But I was the one who moved like a blur from room to room. By the time the guests arrived at 2, I'd been on my feet 7 hours. They sat in the living room. I refilled plates. Topped off tea. Smiled politely as Auntie Neha said things like, "Maya is such a good girl. So lucky, having elders to guide you. In our day, daughters-in-law knew their place." My mother-in-law nodded approvingly. After they left, I stumbled into the kitchen. My back hurt. My head pounded. I leaned on the counter for a second. Just a second. "Maya," my mother-in-law snapped, walking in behind me. "Why are the dishes still here? The sink is full." I started. "You sit too much," she said. "When I was your age, I would have washed everything already." "I've been working all day," I said, the words slipping out hotter than I intended. "Since 6 this morning. I haven't even eaten." She rolled her eyes. "You're dramatic," she said. "You modern girls are so weak. Back then we didn't complain. We respected our elders." "Respect goes both ways," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "Who teaches you these ideas?" she snapped. "Your mother? Your friends? You live in our house. You follow our rules. If you don't like it, you are free to leave. But don't come back begging when you can't keep up with rent elsewhere. You won't survive without family. There it was. The threat under the smile. The safety net is a leash. I looked at the sink, at the pile of dishes, at the life I was living. And I thought, I would rather drown trying than suffocate slowly here. It took me 3 months to get out. 3 months of quietly looking at studio apartments on my lunch breaks, running budgets, figuring out if I could cover rent, food, transit, and my own small life without their forced savings. I realized something astounding. Even with my modest paycheck, if I wasn't handing half of it over every month and buying groceries for 4 adults, I could afford a tiny place on my own. Not comfortably, but enough. I started funneling part of my salary into a separate savings account. Not the one my mother-in-law could see over my shoulder. A different bank, different app. I picked up extra hours at work. Told Arjun I was busy with projects. It wasn't entirely a lie. The project was me. When I had first, last, and security saved, I signed a lease on a shoebox studio 15 minutes from my job. It had peeling paint, a view of a brick wall, roaches if you left crumbs out, but it also had a lock I controlled, a kitchen that was mine, silence that belonged to me. The hardest part was telling Arjun. I found an apartment, I said one night in our room, heart in my throat. He stared at me. For who? He asked. For me, I said. I'm moving out. He blinked. Did my parents say something? He asked. Is this about my mom and the dishes? She gets like that. You know that. Just ignore her. I can't ignore it anymore, I said. I've ignored it for 3 years. I'm done. I need my own space. We're saving, he said. We're so close. We're not, I said. We're saving for them. Not for us. I don't even know how much is in the supposed house fund. Do you? He hesitated. That's not the point, he said. The point is, you're breaking up the family. People will talk, let them, I said. They don't live my life. I do, so you're leaving me, he said, voice cracking. I'm leaving this house, I said. I want you to come with me. We can start over, just the 2 of us, but I'm going either way. He looked torn. He loved me, I believe that. He also loved his parents, and the easy comfort of being the golden child in a home where someone else handled everything. In the end, he said, I can't abandon them. Not like this. Maybe in a year, or 2, when they're more stable. I nodded slowly. I understand, I said. And I can't stay another day. We were at an impasse. A week later, I packed my things. My clothes. My books. The few kitchen gadgets I'd bought with my own money. My mother-in-law stood in the hall, arms crossed. So dramatic, she said. Over some dishes. You'll be back. You can't afford to live alone. We'll see, I said. She scoffed. Who will cook for you? Who will look after you? You don't even know how to pay bills. I'm about to learn, I said. She shook her head. Ungrateful, she muttered. We opened our home to you. You opened your home, I thought. You closed your hands. I walked out. It felt like stepping off a cliff and discovering, mid-fall, that I had wings. Living alone was hard, but it was my kind of hard. I ate a lot of rice and beans. I learned to budget like my life depended on it. Because it did. I picked up a second part-time job on weekends, doing bookkeeping for a local property management company. That job changed everything. At first, it was just numbers. Rent in. Expenses out. Late fee calculations. But the more I watched, the more I saw the bigger picture. The owner of the management company, a blunt woman named Denise, had started the way I had. Young. Broke. Determined. Now she managed hundreds of units for small landlords and owned a few dozen properties herself. She took care of repairs, handled tenant screening, organized leases, and collected rent checks that made my head spin. These buildings are my retirement, she said once, catching me looking at a stack of statements. And my kids' start in life. Took years to build, but it was worth it. I thought about the house fund that had never existed in any real way for me. I thought about the power my in-laws had wielded over my housing. Landlord had always been a distant, slightly scary concept. I'd never imagined being on that side of the lease. But watching Denise, seeing how she used information and systems instead of guilt and manipulation, flipped a switch in my brain. Maybe, I thought, the best revenge wasn't just living well. Maybe it was owning the ground other people had once used to trap me. I started learning. Not just in the hazy, wouldn't it be nice way, but seriously. I read books on real estate investing, listened to podcasts, sat in on tenant-landlord core hearings when I could. Asked Denise a million questions. She answered most of them. You want your own place someday? She asked. I want never to be trapped in someone else's house again, I said. And if I can make money instead of just handing it over, even better. She grinned. Now you're speaking my language, she said. My first property wasn't glamorous. A small, slightly beat-up duplex in a not quite gentrifying neighborhood. The down payment came from every spare dollar I'd saved, a small bonus from my day job, a bit of help from my own parents, who didn't have much but believed in me enough to match what I'd saved. The numbers worked because I was willing to live in one unit and rent out the other. The rent from the other side covered most of the mortgage. I covered the rest. Suddenly, instead of being a tenant in someone else's world, I was both landlord and tenant in mine. It wasn't easy. The roof leaked. The plumbing was ancient. My first tenants were a couple who fought loudly at 2 a.m. But it was mine. I was building something. Meanwhile, my in-laws' perfect life started showing cracks. I heard about it mostly through Arjun. We were separated, but not formally divorced. We texted sometimes. Talked occasionally. Our conversations were awkward. How are your parents? I'd ask, trying to be polite. A few years after I moved out, his answers changed. They're okay, he'd say. Dad's back is acting up. Mom has high blood pressure. The house needs work. The roof. The plumbing. They're arguing about money a lot. He kept living with them. Partly out of loyalty. Partly out of inertia. We eventually agreed to get divorced. Not because we hated each other. Because our lives had diverged so completely. He couldn't imagine leaving his parents' home. I couldn't imagine going back. We signed papers. Split our meager assets. There wasn't much to divide. He kept his car. I kept my duplex. We wished each other well. That was that. I thought that would be the last time our lives intersected in any significant way. I was wrong. Over the next few years, I bought more properties. Slowly. Carefully. I didn't flip houses for quick cash. I bought small duplexes. Triplexes. An old 4-unit with slanted floors and tons of potential. Lenders liked my file. Steady income from my day job. Solid rent rolls. No missed payments. I set everything up under an LLC. Northridge Properties, LLC. It kept things organized. Professional. It also put a layer between me and tenants who might get weird about knowing their landlord's personal details. By 33, I owned 11 units across a few modest buildings. Nothing luxurious. Nothing Instagram investor fancy. But enough that my rental income covered my living expenses. My day job became optional. I kept it because I liked it. The girl who once had to ask permission to spend $10 wildly out of budget now signed off on contractor invoices that were more than her old monthly paychecks. I still lived simply. But I slept better. Because my housing, my income, my future weren't dependent on anyone else's mood. Then Denise emailed me one afternoon with a subject line that made my heart stop. New applicant for Oakwood. You'll recognize the last name. Oakwood was one of my smaller buildings. A 4-plex on a quiet street not far from where my in-laws lived. I clicked the attachment. There, in neatly filled-in handwriting, was a rental application. Applicant 1, Rajiv Patel. Applicant 2, Anita Patel. My in-laws. Income listed, a small pension. Social Security. Some savings. Current housing, selling primary residence due to financial hardship. They were looking for a 2-bedroom on the ground floor. Prefer quiet landlord who respects family, Anita had written in the anything else we should know. I sat back in my chair. Of all the units in this city, of all the landlords, they'd chosen to apply to one of mine, through my management company. They had no idea. Not yet. I forwarded the email to Denise. These are my former in-laws, I wrote. We'll treat them like any other applicants. Pull credit, verify income. No favoritism. No discrimination. She wrote back. Got it. Numbers first. Drama later. Their credit wasn't great. Years of borrowing against their house. Medical bills. A couple of late payments. But they weren't catastrophically bad. They had steady, if modest, income. They had a decent amount of savings listed, likely from the house sale. Our criteria weren't perfect only. We took into account the whole picture. On paper, they were acceptable. Not amazing. Not terrible. If their last name had been anything else, I would have said yes without much thought, with a slightly higher deposit. So I did exactly that. Approve with 1.5 months security, I told Denise. Standard lease. She raised an eyebrow. You sure you're okay with this? She asked. Yes, I said. It's a solid application. This is business. Want me to keep your name off the initial lease signing? She asked. Let them meet the property manager first? Yes, I said. I'll show up for the walkthrough. That felt fair, professional, and, I'll admit, a little bit delicious. Lease signing day, Denise met them at the building. They were all smiles. They loved the neighborhood, the ground floor unit, the small patio. It feels like home, my mother-in-law said, according to Denise's later report. We raised our boys in a house like this. I came by the next day for the move-in inspection. I wore jeans, a simple blouse, and my Northridge Properties badge. When they opened the door, arms full of cloth-wrapped dishes, my mother-in-law looked up and froze. Maya? She said. Hi, I said. Welcome. Her eyes darted around. Do you live here? She asked, voice a little high. I own here, I said. Through my company. I wanted to come by to go over the move-in checklist and answer any questions. She blinked. You own this building? She repeated. Most of it, I said. Northridge Properties is my LLC. You'll send rent to the management office. I'm the majority owner. My father-in-law, carrying a box labeled spices, stared. You're the landlord? He asked. Yes, I said. Silence. For once in our history, my mother-in-law seemed at a loss for words. She recovered quickly. Well, she said, forcing a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Look at you, little Maya, so big now. We always knew you were smart. That was, and wildly revisionist. We're proud, my father-in-law added weakly. I smiled politely. Thank you, I said. Let's talk about the lease. We walked through the apartment. I pointed out the condition of the walls, the appliances, the smoke detectors. We both signed the inspection form. I reviewed the key points of the lease. Rent is due on the 1st of each month, I said. There's a 5-day grace period. After that, late fees apply. No smoking in the unit. Quiet hours start at 10 p.m. If there are maintenance issues, you submit a work order through the portal. She frowned. What if we just tell you? She asked. You know us. We are family. You can just stop by. I don't make exceptions to process, I said. It keeps things organized. For you and for me. She bristled slightly. Surely you can be a little flexible with us, she said. We are not strangers. In this context, you are tenants, I said gently. Tenants I care about, but tenants all the same. The rules apply equally. That's how I keep my head straight. Her eyes flashed. So you won't help us out if we have a hard month? She asked. You know your father-in-law's back is bad. My blood pressure, medical bills. Surely you can waive a fee here and there. I thought about all the times she'd lectured me about respect while handing me her laundry. All the times she'd said, if you don't like it, leave, secure in the belief I couldn't. All I can promise, I said, is what I promise every tenant. If something goes wrong, talk to me early. I'll work within the lease as much as I can. But I can't bend the rules just because we share history. It wouldn't be fair to you or to anyone else. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Of course, my father-in-law said softly. We understand. I nodded. Good, I said. Welcome to Oakwood. Over the next few months, they settled in. They had good days and bad. Some nights, as I walked past the building collecting mail, I'd see my father-in-law through the window, watching TV. My mother-in-law watering plants on the patio. They looked ordinary. Not the towering figures who'd once dictated my every move. Just two aging people navigating downsizing like everyone else. They paid rent on time. Mostly. The third month, it came on the 6th. With it, a note in shaky handwriting. Sorry we are late. Pharmacy bill was higher than expected. Please don't charge late fee. A&R. My policy, written long before they were ever applicants, said, First late, fee may be waived at landlord's discretion. After that, fees apply. I thought about slapping the fee on an eye for every time they'd nitpicked me over small things. Instead, I credited it back. Not because they were my in-laws. Because that's what I would have done for any tenant the first time. I sent a short email. I've waived the late fee this month as a one-time courtesy. Going forward, please plan ahead for medications and rent so both can be covered. If something changes with your income, call the office immediately so we can discuss options. My mother-in-law called me that afternoon. You didn't have to do that, she said. I know, I said. A beat. Thank you, she added quietly. You're welcome, I said. That's the advantage of working with a small local owner. We can be human within limits. She hesitated. Is this weird for you? She asked. Is it weird for you? I countered. She let out a short laugh. Yes, she admitted. I never imagined I'd be paying you to live in your building. Neither did I said. Life is strange. She was quiet for a moment. We weren't very kind to you, she said finally, when you lived with us. It was the closest she'd ever come to acknowledging it. I didn't rush in to make her feel better. I let the truth hang. No, I said. You weren't. I thought we were teaching you how to be a good daughter-in-law, she said. Like my mother taught me. But maybe I just didn't know any other way to feel important. I swallowed hard. I appreciate you saying that, I said. You really did survive without family, she said, almost to herself. I did, I said. And now I get to choose when and how family is in my life. That must feel powerful, she said. It feels peaceful, I replied. People love to ask, so what's the revenge? Did I make them scrub hallways? Raise their rent to the legal maximum? Evict them the first time they stepped out of line? No. The revenge, if you can even call it that, was quieter. It was in every rent payment they made on the first of the month, addressed to Northridge Properties, LLC, that ultimately came to me. It was in every work order they had to submit like any other tenant, instead of snapping their fingers and expecting me to appear with a broom. It was in the way my mother-in-law's tone changed when she talked to the landlord. Respectful, cautious, aware that my time had value. It was in my own freedom. Walking into their unit to inspect a leaky sink, doing the job, and walking out without being roped into dusting their shelves. Being able to say, that's not part of the lease, and having that actually mean something. It was knowing that if things ever went truly sideways, if they stopped paying entirely, or broke rules repeatedly, the difficult conversation would happen in an office with fluorescent lighting, lease in hand. Not in a kitchen with dishes and tears weaponized against me. Eventually, they stabilized. They learned to live on a tighter budget. They made friends with the neighbor downstairs. My father-in-law started a small garden in a shared patch of dirt by the parking lot. My mother-in-law came to the office once with a jar of homemade pickle for the staff. For the nice girls who help us, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. We chatted for a few minutes. As she left, she turned back. Maya, she said, if you ever want to come for dinner, you are welcome. No expectations. Just, I thought about the countless meals I'd cooked in her kitchen without ever truly being a guest. I thought about how I didn't need that validation anymore. Maybe sometime, I said. I haven't gone yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. The important thing is this. If I do, it'll be by choice. Not because I need a roof, or approval, or a guaranteed plate. Just because I want to. If you've ever been treated like free labor in the name of family, here's what I learned the hard way. Love without boundaries turns into exploitation very quickly. People will call it tradition, respect, duty. They'll tell you you'll never make it without them, that the outside world is too cruel. Sometimes it is. But often, the cruelty they're warning you about looks a lot like what they're already doing, just with legal paperwork. Walking away doesn't magically fix everything. I still had bills. Lonely nights in a crappy studio. But it gave me something priceless. A chance to see what I was capable of when I wasn't carrying everyone else's idea of who I should be. Becoming my in-laws' landlord wasn't some grand act of vengeance I'd meticulously planned. It was the byproduct of years of small, stubborn choices to build a life where my value wasn't measured in how many plates I could carry at once. When they turned that key in the lock of the apartment I owned, the power dynamic shifted. Not so I could use it to hurt them. so I could finally live on level ground. And that, to me, is the most satisfying kind of revenge, not destroying someone else's house, just refusing to let them keep you trapped in it. Thank you for listening to my story.